let's move to our next speaker. And Munib is Director Digital and Design, Director Design and Digital at AMP. And he's talking about implementation dilemma, how to build a sustainable innovation engine. Would you please welcome to the stage Munib Karavdic?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Next one. Just a small correction, Director of Design and Innovation, not Digital. So, anyway, good afternoon. Look, psychologists would say that when people finding a job that they're really passionate about, they stop actually working. They consider that as a kind of a passion, and they are very relaxed about it. And today, I would like to present things that I've been working and doing on as an academic and doing the research, but mainly as a practitioner working in AP about this innovation program across the enterprise. And so I would actually, and working as an academic, I had a privilege to talk to many academics here in Australia and overseas, as well as actually talking to many companies. And then the first part of my presentation will be around the pattern that I actually realized that, why actually we are not always successful in bringing innovation on board to market to our customers. But then the second part, very shorter, will be about how we apply this at AMP and what we do with it. But psychologists also would say that, you never speak to the forum after lunch. And then I was thinking, how can I engage you here? So because it's very hard after lunch, just that you want to have afternoon nap and things like that. So can I ask you actually to stand up all right now? Great. So now, can you actually sit back on this chair in whichever way you want to sit? So, how many of you change the position when you sit back again from the previous one? 1, 2, 3? Oh, well, I'm very impressed with that. Because usually people are much more comfortable sitting back in the same position where they sit. And this is very much aligned with the topic that I would like to talk to you about this the implementation dilemma. What leaders are facing when they actually come to the point about the implementing innovation. So when I turn to this slide, it's nothing new to you. So everybody would say, everybody now is buying this saying, innovation distinguishes between a leader and follower. But the challenge for everybody is, we all actually very good in engaging people, saying, let's do it with the new stuff, let's bring some new ideas. And then we start actually very enthusiastically bringing new ideas. And suddenly we say, oh my goodness, it's very hard to implement. So, and then we say, oh, well, we can do that later. It's not our priority. We didn't have that in our strat plan and things like that. And then what we are saying here, the further you go with your kind of thinking, the harder it would be for you to actually bring this to the organization. And you have these two extreme situations where you have a kind of cool fusion zone, where it's in the blue sky, as a kind of extreme. On the other side, you have the incremental improvements that everybody loves, because we know how to do that, like many of you actually sit the same way you sit before. So, and then it creates some zone, which we call that the scary zone for executives. And then they're saying, well, we don't know where to go now. Will we go to actually implement these ideas in a much easier way with incremental improvements with areas that we know well? Or should we go to some kind of unknown territory and create a risk for us? So then the question is, what are my career expectations, aspirations, where I want to go? Should I risk? Are we accepting failures and things like that? A lot of questions are coming from people's mind in this scary zone. But to actually kind of create this, actually to give you more impression about this scary zone, if you look at this, some situation, for example, creating let's assume we are manufacturing toasters. And the kind of questions that we have above the line is kind of ambition of your idea. So, and And then the below the line is actually how actually this will fit within existing structure. And if you say simple questions, how do we make our toasters faster and cheaper? You see, it is straightforward. Like we all will know how to do that. You lay off a few hundred people, you save money immediately. So you change some things in the toaster and you can make it cheaper and things like that. So that's straightforward. But then if you go further and say, how do we make better toast? And this kind of creating fuzzy picture, oh, how can I do that? What I actually do? But then you go to the next one. What are the new ways to toast bread? This is kind of completely new kind of thing, and its picture becomes even more fuzzy. But then you come to the point and say, hey, but it's not about toaster. It's about actually attributes to how we toast bread and how people will feel about it. Then you're lost. And you are in this scary zone and saying, what am I going to do now? So, to overcome this, it is important to understand that we need to build these capabilities, but not actually having in one team and then responsible like we had in the past. All credits to Thomas Edison, where he established this R&D function, but doesn't work anymore. We need to have that across the board and across the organization. So then we need to understand our organization's capabilities to innovate. And a lot of people will argue when saying that the kind of capability to innovate is kind of multiplication between creativity and execution. And then 2 or 3 years ago, the guys did a survey with more than 1,000 executives from 500 Fortune companies. And among the survey, they had 2 questions in relation to innovation, creativity and execution. The question was, how do you believe, to what extent your people are creative in the organization, the scale of 1 to 10? And then the average score was 6. And so let's apply this kind of math and look at how it should work. And then another question was, what's your kind of execution or implementation capabilities? And then average score out of 10 was 1. We're saying that basically we are very poor in doing that. When you look at this kind of formula here, then obviously however you position this number 6, is capacity to innovate. Is it index or number or whatever? If you look at that logic, well, this is how we look like. And it's not bad in the end. But then, when we say we need to innovate and we need to bring new ideas, and let's assume that we increase this creativity of our people, and we say, well, to 8, average would be 8. And then you see the outcome of our capacity of innovation to be innovative index is around 8. But then if we say, well, let's keep where we have a people in their creativity on the level that it is today, but let's actually focus on execution. This is what will work. You see, that's the increase in execution is almost doubling your ability to actually create additional rent or margin for your organization. And then we come to the question, saying, what is the implementation dilemma? Simply put, I think that there are 2 kind of elements. One is, are we using traditional way of delivering stuff? Should be traditional, not tradition. And then, or are we creating a new way for delivery? So a lot of companies will opt in for the first option because it is easier and much known, because we are familiar with these things. The second bit is actually very much harder, and people deny that they need to do that. So this is the way how we do it today, or most of the organizations do it today, when I do the research and when I talk to people. So we have a strat plan. We agreed, senior executives would agree, this is the initiative we go forward. We nominate business sponsor. Business sponsor will take project manager, build a business case. Guess what? Business case was great based on accountants' assumptions. We have a 15% return on investment. Then MPV is there. Go and build it. Halfway through, the team would come and say, hey, well, we don't have an answer on a couple of questions. What we are going to do? Oh, you need to build on time and budget and do whatever you do between, whatever you want between. So what we do with this scope of the project. So So we actually work on this, and when we celebrate, we deliver this on time, the budget, and what we delivered, and this picture is saying candle. Which means we don't actually take into account when we're discoping things, what value we are actually taking out of this concept when we go to the market. So this is what I call nice landing, wrong airport. And we're all very much proud. They say, well, look, you gave me a good concept, let me finish this and I will put it on the market. So, then we have what's the implementation solution? So we believe that there are kind of 4 steps that we need to actually accomplish on this journey. The one is that we are saying move from spreadsheets to prototypes. This means how often you actually go spend 2 or 3 months debating with your colleagues on spreadsheets and they have a one line, let's do this and this and that. This is how much money it would cost us and we will deliver by this time. And you spend months in your strat planning process debating which part of the line from the spreadsheet you will take in, out, prioritize. And without actually having a full picture of what it is. What is it? So what we're suggesting here is that, and we are practicing this with AMP, we started practicing this, you come with a very clear picture, with a prototype, which you visually present what is this about. So how customer will benefit from that, and then how AMP will benefit, or your organization will benefit from that. And you have a high level conviction that because you already tested with some audience, doesn't matter, it doesn't need to be exact what you want. But you have some level of conviction, that's the right direction that you want to take. So then once you have that component, then the question is what you're going to do with this prototype. So if you take this prototype into your normal business as usual environment, then there's a very high likelihood that will actually be lost in this entire kind of forest of your existing business as usual. So what we're suggesting is that it is important to actually create some incubation space where this idea will incubate to the point that we have a high level of conviction that should be scaled up. When we say incubate, it doesn't mean that we are throwing immediately millions of dollars in actually building this. We actually spend quite less amount of money at the beginning until we get this conviction that it is the right thing to do and it's great value for customers and for our organization. And this MVO means minimum viable offer. So which means that we come to the point in the incubation where we actually have that on the market. So it's different in traditional way how we tested a new product and new concepts. We go to focus group discussion and say, hey, do you like this product? They say, oh yeah, I love it, good. And when you actually come to put it in the market and you want people to buy, people say, well, I didn't say I will buy it. I just say I like it. So this is the difference. So now you actually, with minimum viable offer, you have a minimum functionalities where you actually go into the market and test. Do people see value in that concept or not? Before you start throwing millions of dollars into your product or service. But then, if you look at that in isolation as a one minimum viable offer, that's top MVO in the shortening this, then it doesn't work as standalone. Because this is kind of, you need to create this more sustainable, and then you need to look at the interactions between other things that you do in the organization, which will help you to eliminate this silo mentality. And then you see these small initiatives, MVOs that you have already marketed, they start interacting with each other. And suddenly you start actually bringing more and more initiatives from these minimum viable offers that you have already on market because you get stimulus from customer insight that you're learning, which because you iterate it all the time. Which I will explain later in principles and feedback. And then, well, see, the thing is like, when you're actually building this in incubation, where you create a portfolio of these minimum viable offers, then when you actually go and scale this up, if you don't have an organization behind you, then that would be a problem. That would be a problem because we have some certain rules how we operate in the current environment, and when rightly, we're actually trying to protect these rules. So take example, brand guidelines. I believe that all of you brand people would say, we have a guidelines and our role is actually to protect our brand, which is absolutely right. But the question is, so what happened if these brand guidelines are not actually fitting into experiment that you try to do, or people don't see as a value? This is the problem when you start actually dealing with. That's why it is important to create this new business as usual environment where people, even brand people, will say, oh, look, we understand. What is the minimum requirement from our brand guidelines that we can accommodate in order to test, will we create value for our customers? So this is, in a nutshell, how it actually is going. This is kind of some visual presentation of how it works. And this is kind of a prototype. This is what I actually sell to my leaders, saying, well, you see, this is how I think it should work. So we have a kind of different, created a physical environment where we have people coming in, subject matter experts, and it's all of these activities and engine, this growth engine is actually underpinned by human-centered design, philosophy and discipline. So once we have people going through this, working in collaboration with their colleagues in multifunctional teams, we need to actually onboard all of them and immerse them into this methodology and the way how this incubation is going to work. And we are pretty confident that once people actually go through this process 6 to 12 months down the track, that they would be perfectly capable to run the business in a new way, that they actually learn in this incubation phase. So there are a couple of principles how we actually position this. So one of the main principles was saying we need to bring right people and dedicate them full time. So when we started doing these things, and people would say, well, I have this person available actually to put for you and things like that. And we said, look, availability is not a competence. We don't actually accept that you have a valuable person. We need to have, this person need to meet some certain criteria, skills and capabilities to actually join this team. So then, and you see like you have people from marketing, from IT and things like that. So then, in that environment, we actually have a very, very good capability to iterate quickly. So build a test and learn approach. In that incubation center, we have people who are human-centered designers. We have a subject matter experts from area that we're working on, functional subject matter experts, and we have IT people sitting all in one room. And the design people are designing sketches and saying this is how it should look like. Business people translating that into business requirements, and IT people putting that into codes and pixels. It's all in one room. So, and then we said, well, you see, traditionally, A&P, and I believe many organizations, they actually tend to deliver perfect stuff perfectly. So they're saying everything must be perfect, up to the single point. And this is, well, we spend more time actually making it perfect rather than understanding what's the customer experience in that and what's the value for customers. That's why we're saying, well, you don't need to have this fantastic high definition website and things like that. And we didn't. We launched a couple of minimum viable offers already, and we knew that our website is not up to standards. But the point wasn't actually to have people assessing your website. The point is, what did they see as a value and experience while they're interacting with A&P or our offers that we have for them? And then they were telling us, like, oh, website is not right. We said, we know, we will fix it. It's not a big deal. And then also, the kind of biggest challenge for us, especially when we talk to IT people, and I believe that we have a lot of IT people here, it's very hard to convince them actually to say, well, you don't need to have a hard wiring when you do these things. We want actually to have a standalone backend of wherever it is possible. In some instances, it is not possible, but we would like to actually have that in isolation before we start hardwiring into the systems. Because as you know, as soon as you say we need to link to the system, it costs you $1 million. We try to actually understand some of these minimum viable offers will fail, and it's no problem. It's much better that we fail when we spend $200,000 or $300,000 than when we spend $3 or $4 million. And then a lot of people would argue and saying, oh, it will be a lot of throwaways if you actually do in this way, well, it will be, but it is easier to throw away $100,000 or $200,000 than $3 or $4 million. So the part of this also that we actually measure desirability and viability. So the point here is why people would actually use this offer or service that we provide. If we don't have a right answer on that, well then we don't have actually the right answer on people's desirability. But at the same time, it can be fantastically appropriate for people, but if company doesn't make money, then there is no point doing that either. So, and I think people are perfectly okay with it, and customers are perfectly okay with it. As long as they see value for themselves, and you as a customer, you would act in the same way. And then the other thing is that we need to socialize this. Socialize, socialize, and socialize. So in the past, we will say, oh, it's all these things, what you've been doing, it's very confidential, and then we don't talk to anybody because and we will just come and release something new. So this concept requires actually a lot of engagement from everybody in the organization, and therefore it is important to have that function and to perform this more often than you think. And it's never too much socializing and communicating with people. So then, how it's actually working in AMP? So very briefly, so we started this journey 4 or 5 years ago, and having kind of 3 kind of key elements of our innovation vision. One was we wanted to harness the creativity of our people through crowdsourcing platform, and still going that. Our entire organization is engaged in this generating new ideas. And then the second one was what we call it expert-driven innovation, where we actually have experts who are proactively looking for innovation, and mainly underpinned by human-centered design methodology. And then the third one is open innovation, where we actually, once we develop these concepts that we believe that would be valuable to our customers, we are looking at what's available in the market that we, instead of actually building them, we can take some part of the, some startups or some small companies that actually can fulfill some of the elements of the offer. And then especially in the early stage when we're building these minimum viable offers, we don't build everything. We actually talk to partners, external partners, and plug in some elements of their capabilities without us building them. So we also established what we call that in innovation and innovation lab and implementation center. And in the innovation lab, we actually build the concepts. Once we have an agreement with the leaders, when we get money allocated, and the business leader actually sponsors the concept, we move the concept into implementation center where we have this environment and incubate idea. And we actually launch that to market in the form of minimum viable offer, which is minimum functionalities, but this offer is in place. So this was very interesting. Actually, we started this collaboration space accidentally, because we realized that collaboration should happen in physical space as well as in virtual space. And well, I actually found the ugliest room in our building, and then asked people to actually just put whiteboards around the walls, from the floor to ceiling. And you see it on the picture here. And I was thinking what I'm going to do now. So I had the room, but I wasn't sure what I'm going to do. But within 2 weeks, we actually had a lot of people actually coming, and then we started seeing different dynamic, how people collaborate. They would come in groups. We actually have a very simple rules. We're saying, if you come to this room, you should expect noise. You should expect that people will interrupt you. You don't talk about some confidential stuff here, and all of these things. And no matter what's your level in the organization, you come in, if you want to collaborate, you expect everybody will be around you. And suddenly within 2 or 3 weeks, we have a massive number of people coming in and start collaborating. And we found that it is very important that people from different parts of the business coming into the same room and then actually working on the same project. So then we applied human-centered design, and we start talking to our customers and start visiting them in their homes. And then we brought with us senior executives, our CEO and all his direct reports. They would come with us and look at what people are talking about, and it was kind of reality check for them as well. So and it was also an eye-opener for them what people think, that they think in a little bit different way how we think in the organization and as a financial services expert. So then based on these discussions, we actually developed these insights, which we use as a foundation to build the ideas, concept, and prototypes. So we built these prototypes. Once we finished this, as I mentioned, we moved this to implementation center, and then we launched this, and we worked to launch it as a minimum viable offer. At the moment, we have a few of these minimum viable offers, and this was really interesting, actually. We had a kind of a lot of criticism at the beginning and said, well, it is too slow. We tried to explain then, you know, when you start actually learning about customers and building these customer insights, which I believe they are key competitive advantage for the organization, then once you have a critical mass of customer insights, these kind of things will pick up very quickly and benefits will start coming then back. And this is exactly what happened. We launched one of the MVOs in December. In February, we had an opportunity to actually launch 3 more MVOs out of this one MVO, which we already had in the market. So it is actually going, in terms of speed, it's going very well. And as I mentioned previously, it is important that we have the organization on the side. And we established what we call the Human-Centered Design Practitioner Program, which we train and help people to understand this discipline of human-centered design, which is very much focusing on customer-centric strategy, and then understanding that whatever we do, we need to make sure that we create value for customer. And this is what actually creates this growth engine, which is an organic growth engine, not actually mergers and acquisitions. This organic growth engine, when you actually, as an organization, building your internal capabilities, which will give you new initiatives, which will create some value for customers. Just quick learning before I finish this. So the important is that to actually make it real. Make it real means that, you know, people should see it. And that's why I think having these visual prototypes is critically important, because people quickly associate with it. When we started putting these prototypes in front of our leaders, we didn't have money in the bucket, but they suddenly say, well, this is so real that we are willing to go and find the money and then actually put money behind this. And we didn't ask for too much, because we said we are going just another iteration. We are not 100% confident that's the way to go. So, and then it's important to maintain intent in implementing this stuff, because sooner or later, people will actually lose the motivation to come with the new ideas if they don't see ideas going through and to market. And it's very important to have that connection. So, and it shouldn't be kind of popularity contest, because you know, it's not I like this idea, I don't like this idea. It should be idea with a high level of conviction and tested that is actually creating value for people, and not actually saying, well, I like this, and oh, I'm senior leader, I know how to do this. So, and it is important to buy some time. As I said, we had a kind of challenges and we had questions in terms of, oh, well, it's too long and things like that. But when we started actually proving it is coming faster out and in different way, more agile way, then it actually proved that we are on the right track. So to minimize organizational disruption that's why this incubation space is actually helping not actually to create the noise for the rest of the business while the rest of the business are actually maintaining engine working. But at the same time, maintaining engine working will require to actually start changing that engine while engine is working. It looks like an impossible mission, but that's what we need to do. And then to minimize cost of failure. So as I mentioned earlier, so it's very simple. Are you actually ready to fail on $200,000 or $2 million? Which is, I think it's not kind of hard choice to make decision on. And then I will finish with these things now, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have one.
Again, let us know where you're from. Just pass it on.
Hello, I'm Peter Schonberg from Medibank Private. How do you deal with the customers on the MVO products that you decide aren't going to go any further?
So can you repeat again?
How do you decide what to do with the customers that have already bought products on MVOs that you're no longer going to continue to support?
Yeah, so Good question. We don't have that case yet, but before we launch any MBO, we have to have a contingency plan. And then we can't launch MBO if we don't have a clear answer what would happen to people if we don't continue with it. So it must be some form of discussion, compensation, and things like that. Like, if you purchase Google glasses, so you paid whatever, $2,000 or $3,000 Google glasses, but nobody guarantees that you will actually use these glasses in the future. So then you have exit strategy from there, absolutely.
I don't think anybody buys Google glasses anymore, do they?
Yeah, so...
Still, the point is great. Another question? Thank you.
Phil Jeffries from Suncorp. Do you rotate people through this area, or is it only the cool kids who get to do the fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole point is we have the talents coming in, do the work, 3 to 6 months. When they feel that they are ready to go, sometimes we attach these people with the MBO, they go in and then scale this up. It is important to mention that it is actually, we actually consider this as a talent building pool as well. So, and then second thing which is important to say is no handover. So in the current environment, what we do, one group of people decide what would go in strategic plan. The other group decides what would go into business sponsorship. Third group will start working on the project. Fourth group will start delivering things, and then you lose in translation many things. What we are saying here, it must be consistency right from the beginning. You have you're dialing up and down experts needed for the project until we get to scale this up. So it's not like, I will start and somebody else will finish. And usually what you thought as an idea and what actually people deliver might be completely two different things. We try to avoid that, and that's the whole point in having talents going through this, and we rotate people and depending on their expertise required.
All right, that's great. Well, that's it there. Would you please thank Munib?